Hi, my name is Emma, and I'm 28. I've been working as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized tech company in downtown Chicago for the past 5 years. It's a decent job, not glamorous, but it pays the bills and there's a level of comfort. In the routine, I know exactly what to expect every day. There's peace in that predictability. I've always been someone who prefers comfort over uncertainty, especially after a few painful experiences in the past. I've made a life for myself that's easy to navigate, one where I don't have to take risks and nothing ever really surprises me. And honestly, that's just how I like it. My mornings are usually the same. I wake up early, brew a cup of coffee, and take the bus to work. I usually arrive at the office just before 8 a.m., allowing me a few quiet minutes to settle in before the day begins. I make sure everything is ready for the team check emails, prepare the reports for the day, and organize the client pitches. It's a job I've gotten very good at, and over the years, I've built a little rhythm that's mine. There's a comfort in the predictability of it all. The office is an open floor plan with rows of cubicles, but I'm a creature of habit and tend to stick to my own corner of the space. I've made my little cubicle my own, filled with photos of family and friends, a few plants, and of course, my ever-growing stack of books and notebooks. It's where I feel in control, where I can focus on my work without much distraction. It was a typical Thursday morning when everything changed, or at least when I started to realize it would. The usual hustle of emails, phone calls, and the phone calls, and the hassle of emails, phone calls, and the T-mails. Soft tapping of keyboards filled the office, but something was different. I could feel it in the air, like a shift that had yet to make its presence fully known. I was in the break room organizing the supplies, trying to keep my mind busy, when I overheard voices from the lobby. I didn't think much of it at first. It was probably just another colleague chatting with someone. But then I heard a laugh. It was a deep, warm laugh, one that carried across the room and instantly caught my attention. A few seconds later, I heard another voice, younger this time. Curious, I turned my head slightly to see who was talking. I didn't recognize the voices immediately, but there was something about the deep male laugh that drew me in. It felt familiar, yet not quite. And then I heard my boss, Mr. Harris, calling out, "Come on in, Jack. Let me introduce you to the team, Jack?" The name floated around in my head, but I couldn't immediately place it. I'd heard Mr. Harris mention his son, but I hadn't expected to see him today, let alone have him stop by the office. Jack was someone I hadn't seen since he was a teenager. I remembered him vaguely, always polite, always with his head in a book, hanging around the office during summer breaks when he was younger. But that was years ago. As I turned to head back to my desk, I saw the door open. That's when I saw him. Jack had changed. The boy I remembered from years ago was gone. In his place stood a man tall, broad-shouldered, with a confidence that practically radiated from him. His dark hair was tousled in a way that made it look effortlessly stylish, and his sharp green eyes held an intensity I hadn't expected. He wasn't the shy, quiet kid I had known. No, this Jack Harris exuded a self-assuredness that could only come from years of growth and change. I stood frozen for a moment, my eyes meeting his. I hadn't realized I was staring until I blinked and quickly looked away. Something shifted in me the moment our gazes locked in unspoken recognition, a pull that I couldn't explain. I wasn't sure if he noticed, but I felt it. I felt the air between us change, and it made my heart beat a little faster. "Emma, right?" he said with a smile that made my stomach do a strange flip. He was speaking to me, directly to me, and the way he said my name felt like he was remembering something important, something personal. I could hear the warmth in his voice, and for a second, I forgot how to respond. I cleared my throat and tried to smile, but it felt like I was fumbling. "Yeah, it's me." "Jack, right?" I could feel the awkwardness creeping into my voice, but I was trying my best to play it cool. He chuckled, and that laugh of his sent another wave of warmth through me. "Yeah, it's been a while," he said, leaning against the doorframe. His eyes never left mine, and for a split second, I forgot how to breathe. "You still working here?" "Yeah, I'm still here." "Been here for a while now," I said, trying to sound casual. But inside, my mind was racing. Why was I so affected? By his presence? What was it about Jack now that made my heart feel like it was skipping beats? "Well," he continued, his voice dropping just slightly, "it's good to see you again. I didn't expect to find you working here when I dropped by. You look different." I didn't know how to respond. "I guess time changes things," I said with a small laugh, my voice shaky. "But yeah, it's good to see you too, Jack." As soon as the words left my mouth, I realized they were too much. It was too much too soon, but there was no going back. It felt like everything had shifted in that moment. The way he looked at me, the way the words flowed between us, it was almost as if the years between us had melted away. I suddenly didn't feel like the same Emma the quiet, controlled, predictable woman I had been just moments before. Jack was different. But so was I wasn't the same person I had been back then either. "Right. Well, I'll see you around," Jack said, breaking the silence. He smiled at me again, that smile that seemed to make the room suddenly brighter, and turned to follow his father down the hallway. As soon as he was out of sight, I felt my hands trembling, and I had to steady myself by grabbing onto the counter. What was that? Why did I feel so rattled by a simple exchange? Why did my heart race every time I thought about the way he had looked at me? I quickly dismissed the feeling as nothing more than a passing moment, a coincidence, maybe. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I had felt something. Something that didn't belong in the sterile office. Something that felt alive and dangerous. The rest of the day passed by in a blur of emails, meetings, and work that required little attention. I tried to focus, but every time I closed my eyes, Jack's face appeared, those green eyes, the playful smile, the way he looked at me with something in his gaze that I couldn't understand. That evening, as I packed up to leave the office, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a random encounter. Something had shifted between us, something deep and unspoken. But I had no idea where it would lead or how to handle it. What if that brief moment, that glance, had meant more than I could grasp? Would it be a fleeting memory, or was it the beginning of something I wasn't prepared for? And as I walked out into the evening air, I couldn't help but wonder just how much my life was about to change. I had no idea then, but one thing was certain: things were no longer the same. The shift had already begun. The next few days in the office felt like a strange kind of limbo, where every moment seemed to be suspended in the air, waiting for something to happen. I tried to stick to my usual routine, burying myself in reports and emails, but Jack's presence lingered in my mind, a constant, quiet hum that I couldn't shake. Each time I saw him across the office, our eyes would meet, and there would be that moment silent, charged, where the world seemed to slow down just for a few seconds. It wasn't even a flirtation. It was something deeper, something raw. I felt it in the pit of my stomach, a stir of emotions I hadn't felt in years. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to push it away, but another part, one that I hadn't allowed myself to listen to in a long time, wanted to embrace it, to see where this connection could go, but I was too scared. My life was built on comfort, stability. I had worked hard to create this bubble around me where things were predictable. I didn't need anyone shaking that up. So I buried my feelings, buried the flutter in my chest every time Jack looked at me. After all, he was just visiting the office. He had his own life, his own world outside these walls. This was just a brief moment in time, nothing more. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more I realized I couldn't. On Monday, I arrived at the office early, as I always did. The city was just waking up outside, the sun filtering through the tall buildings, casting a golden glow across the lobby floor. I poured myself a cup of coffee, trying to shake off the heaviness that had settled over me since the weekend. My mind kept drifting back to Jack and that moment when our eyes met in the hallway. That was all it had been, right? Just a moment. One simple exchange. But my thoughts kept circling back to him, to the way his smile made my heart race, to the way his voice carried through the office. Was I overthinking things? Was I reading too much into a simple, casual conversation? I sighed, trying to push the thoughts away as I stared at my computer screen, clicking through emails I wasn't really reading. I was lost in my thoughts when I heard the familiar sound of footsteps approaching. I looked up and froze. There he was. Jack was standing in front of my cubicle, looking as relaxed as ever. But this time there was something different in his eyes. He wasn't just here to chat about office matters. No, he was here with intention. The way he leaned casually against the cubicle wall made the air around us feel charged. "Morning, Emma," he greeted, his voice smooth and easy like he hadn't just thrown my entire world into a quiet whirlwind. "Thought I might find you here." "Hi, Jack," I said, trying to sound composed. I couldn't help but notice how my heart was speeding up, how my palms felt slightly clammy. "What's up?" he grinned, his eyes bright with curiosity. "I was hoping to talk to you about something. You've got a minute?" I nodded, forcing myself to focus, to stay grounded. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Jack glanced around the office, ensuring no one was around before he spoke again, his tone suddenly more serious, more focused. "Well, I've been thinking a lot since last week, about that conversation we had, about your question." I blinked. My heart skipped. "My question?" "Yeah," Jack said, leaning a little closer, his voice quieter now, almost as if he was revealing a secret. "You said you were comfortable, safe, but is that all you want, Emma?" His eyes locked onto mine again, his gaze intense, searching for something in me. "Are you really happy? Or are you just existing?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. The same question that had been haunting me since Thursday echoed in my mind. Was I happy? Was I really happy? I had never stopped to ask myself that. It was always about being safe, about having control, about keeping things steady. But Jack's words made me realize how much of my life had been spent keeping everything in place, never allowing myself to feel anything beyond the edges of what I could control. I trailed off, unsure how to respond. I felt exposed, as if he had uncovered a part of me I had long kept hidden. "I don't know what you mean. I mean, I've never really thought about it. I guess comfort is enough for me." Jack smiled, but it wasn't the playful grin I had seen before. It was softer, more understanding. "Comfort's not the same as happiness, Emma. I think you know that." His words hung in the air, and I was left standing there, unsure of how to respond. Comfort was all I had ever known. It was my shield, the thing that kept me from feeling too much, from risking anything that might hurt me again. But now, with Jack standing in front of me, looking at me like I was someone worth taking a risk for, I wasn't so sure anymore. I began, but my words faltered, my mind spinning. I never thought about it that way. Jack's eyes softened, and for a moment I saw something in them, a flicker of understanding, of recognition. "I get it," he said quietly. "You've built this life, this routine to protect yourself. But maybe it's time to think about more than just comfort." I felt a flutter in my chest as his words sank in. Was he right? Was it time to stop hiding behind my comfort zone? But the thought scared me. What if stepping outside of that safe space meant losing control? What if it meant opening myself up to something that could hurt? Jack seemed to sense my hesitation, his expression turning more serious. Look, Emma, I'm not asking you to do anything crazy. I'm just asking you to think about it. To ask yourself if you're really living or just going through the motions. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. What could I say to that? Jack was right. For the longest time, I had been so careful, so deliberate, avoiding anything that might upset the stability I had worked so hard to build. But was that enough? Was that truly living? Before I could find an answer, Jack stood up straight, offering me a small smile. I'm not going anywhere, Emma, but I think you might want to start thinking about where you're headed. You've got a lot of potential. Don't waste it on comfort. With that, he turned and walked away, his presence lingering in the air. Like an unanswered question, I sat there for a long time, staring at my desk, unsure of what to do next. His words were echoing in my mind, growing louder with every passing second. Comfort or happiness? Safety or risk? The office seemed quieter than before, and I couldn't help but feel like everything around me had shifted. Jack had opened a door, one I hadn't realized was even there. And now I was faced with a choice. Could I keep living in the safe, predictable world I had built, or was it time to take a leap of faith and see where the unknown might lead? That evening, I stayed at the office later than usual, finishing up the reports I had been working on all day. My mind wasn't on the task at hand, though it was on Jack, on what he had said and what it meant for me. For the first time in a long time, I found myself wondering if I was ready to change as I packed up my things and prepared to leave. I noticed something on my desk, a small envelope tucked under the edge of my notebook. My name was written in neat, familiar handwriting. I hesitated before opening it, unsure of what I would find inside. But as I pulled the letter from the envelope, I couldn't help but smile. The note was simple, just a few words. I'll be at the Bluebird Bar tonight, 7 p.m. If you're ready to stop living in comfort, I'll be waiting. Jacked out, the weight of the decision settled in my chest. It was happening. Whether the first was ready or not, everything was about to change. And this time, I wasn't sure if I could hide from it. The rest of the evening felt like a blur. My mind raced as I left the office, clutching the small envelope Jack had left on my desk. The words he had written seemed to echo in my ears, vibrating through my thoughts. If you're ready to stop living in comfort, I'll be waiting. The simple invitation, the directness of it, it unsettled me. Yet there was something about it that stirred a curiosity I hadn't felt in a long time. The night air was cooler than usual as I walked down the familiar streets of the city. The world around me was busy, bustling with life, but I felt like I was moving through a fog, caught in a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The further I walked, the heavier the weight of the decision on my shoulders grew. Jack was asking me to make a choice, not just between comfort and change, but between staying in the safety of my predictable world and venturing into the unknown. I wasn't sure if I was ready to let go of everything I had built. I'd spent years crafting a life that was secure, free from the chaos of uncertainty. But Jack's words had planted a seed of doubt. Could I really keep living this way, knowing that there was something more out there waiting for me? By the time I reached the Bluebird Bar, I found myself standing in front of the door, hesitating. The dim light spilling out from the inside seemed to beckon me, but I was frozen in place. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the door handle. I wasn't sure what I was afraid of. Was it Jack? Or was it the possibility that he might actually be right? That I had spent so long avoiding life, hiding behind my routine, that I had forgotten what it felt like to really live? Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door. The Bluebird Bar was small and intimate, with an old-school charm that reminded me of something from a different time. Soft jazz played in the background, and the low murmur of conversation filled the room. The warm glow of the amber lights and the smell of whiskey and cigars mixed together to create an atmosphere that was both inviting and a little intoxicating. I could feel the tension in my shoulders easing, but my heart was still racing as I scanned the room. And then I saw him. Jack was sitting at the bar, his back slightly turned as he chatted with the bartender. He was wearing a navy blue shirt that made his eyes stand out even more. And there was something about the way he was sitting, relaxed, confident, that drew my attention. He hadn't noticed me yet, and I stood there for a moment, just watching him. The sight of him, the way he held himself with such ease, only made the weight of my decision feel heavier. I hadn't expected this sudden rush of emotions. The pull I felt to him, as if he was a magnet and I was a mere speck of iron being drawn in. I had tried so hard to ignore it, to keep my distance, but now here I was, standing at the edge of something I wasn't sure I could fully understand. Emma? Jack's voice broke through my thoughts, and I turned to find him smiling at me. That familiar, warm smile. I'm glad you came. He slid over to make room for me, and I took a seat next to him at the bar. The bartender, an older man with a kind face, gave us a nod before going back to polishing glasses. I didn't know if you'd show up, Jack said, his voice laced with a quiet intensity. I wasn't sure where your head was at, but I'm glad you're here. I didn't know how to respond. My mind was still spinning, my thoughts jumbled. I just nodded, not trusting myself to say anything coherent. The quiet between us felt comfortable, yet heavy with unspoken words. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I wasn't sure if I should come, I said finally, my voice quieter than usual. I didn't know what you were expecting. Jack chuckled softly. I wasn't expecting anything, Emma. I just wanted you to be here. I wanted to give you a chance to think, to make a choice. Make a choice? I asked, turning slightly to look at him. About what? About you, he said, his eyes locking with mine. About what you really want, not just what's comfortable, not just what's easy, but what you truly want out of your life, out of us. The weight of his words hit me like a wave, crashing over me. What did I want? I hadn't even asked myself that in years. I had been so focused on getting through each day, making sure everything was in its place, that I'd forgotten what it meant to want someone. I don't know what I want anymore, I whispered, my gaze dropping to my hands. I thought I did. I thought I had everything figured out. But now, I'm not sure. Jack's hand gently brushed mine, and I looked up, startled by the softness in his touch. His fingers lingered there for a moment, his skin warm against mine, grounding me in a way that felt strangely comforting. You don't have to know everything, he said softly, his voice low and reassuring. Sometimes it's not about having everything figured out. Sometimes it's about taking that first step, letting yourself feel something real, something worth taking a chance on. His words were so simple, yet they carried such weight. I had spent so much time holding back, trying to maintain control over every aspect of my life, that I had forgotten what it was like to feel vulnerable, to allow myself to take a risk. Jack, I began, my voice shaking a little. I've spent so long building this life. It's safe, it's comfortable, but now it feels like I'm standing on the edge of something I can't control. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. Jack turned towards me, his eyes softening. I'm not asking you to jump in with both feet, Emma. I'm just asking you to consider that maybe it's time for something different. Time to take a chance on something real. I felt a knot form in my throat as I struggled to find the words. This wasn't just about the office, about the job or the routine. It was about me, about us, about a future I hadn't even allowed myself to think about. Jack was asking me to step outside of everything I had known, to embrace uncertainty. It was terrifying, but at the same time, it felt like the most freeing thing I had ever heard. I looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there, and something inside me shifted. Maybe I wasn't ready to jump all the way, but I could take the first step. I could let myself feel. I could let myself believe in something more than just comfort. "I think I'm ready," I whispered, the words barely audible, but they felt like a declaration. "I'm ready to take that first step." Jack's smile widened, and for a moment, I saw a flash of relief in his eyes. He leaned in closer, his lips brushing my ear as he whispered, "I'm glad. Because I've been waiting for you to see it." The moment he said that, everything changed. It wasn't just about us sitting at a bar anymore. It was about something bigger, something real. As we sat there together, our hands entwined, I realized that I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of Jack, not of the unknown. For the first time in a long time, I felt something stir inside me, something deep, something powerful. And I knew, with certainty, that this was just the beginning of a journey I had been too afraid to start. And for the first time, I felt ready to embrace it all.